isn't always fair, and life isn't always just. Because things happen that we can't explain and we cannot make right. Doesn't matter how much we try. And one of those things that happen and we cannot explain and cannot make right is loss. It doesn't matter how much we try, we could never make it right. So today we are going to start a series on loss and grief. I do have a small experiment that I plan to do, and I'll need a volunteer or someone to volunteer and help me see how it feels like to lose someone so dear to you and have to struggle with grief. So if you have these sheets, all right, I'd like you to look into page 1 of those sheets. Let me see by raise of hands, how many of you have lost someone really, really dear to you? Yeah. I don't know anyone who has never lost anyone who is dear to them, or lost something that is dear to them. Sometimes it doesn't have to be someone, it could also be something that you value so much and you lose. So every one of us has had to experience some loss of some kind. And that means every one of us knows what grief feels like. And I have seen whether in myself or in others that I've spoken to, how you lose someone. That's a very desperate time. You need comforters. You need people to lean on. And most of those who come to you and talk to you just come out flat, almost as if they're missing the point of what is happening to you, or what you are dealing with, or what you're experiencing. You read beautiful cuts with all kinds of wonderful messages, and they just can't connect with your pain because the pain is so brutal, so personal. And it appears like no one else knows what is going on with you right now, how wounded you are right now. And at times where you yourself begin to question whether you're grieving right, or there's something you're not doing right. You question yourself, you raise questions only because of the feedback you get from people and from how society reacts to us when we're grieving. We begin to second guess ourselves and second guess how we grieve, as if there is some normal way, some set out guidelines on how to grieve. And so in number 1, I said, loss and grief will change our landscape. And this will sadly remain so forever, believe it or not. So don't try to make it look as if it's normal again. No, life is going to change when you lose something or someone that you love. Give an example. If I lose an eye, my life is changed forever. It doesn't matter how much I try. I may get another artificial eye. But that fact that I lost an eye is going to be true forever, for the rest of my life. If you lose a child, that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter how much you try. You are no longer the mother or the or the father of a certain child. Now you may have other children, but you are no longer the father or the mother of a certain child. That's a fact. Nothing will change that. Same thing if your husband dies or your wife dies. Yeah, you may be the wife of someone else, but you are no longer the wife of this person who has passed, or the husband of this person who has passed. That means that landscape is going to stay changed for the rest of your life. The mistake we make is we're trying to replace, almost trying to change, or make it look like, okay, someone is going to replace this loss. That's why I grieve, because we're trying to grieve the way grief is not meant to be grieved. And so we make it more difficult for ourselves. It becomes more excruciating, more painful, even to manage. And it lasts longer. So when you have lost someone, this is difficult to accept, but it's a fact. And unless we tell ourselves the truth, when we deny and try to lie ourselves and try to placate ourselves, and people try to placate us with all kinds of platitudes, those don't work. They may make me feel good for now, but they don't solve my problems, because I'm trying to bandage my wounds with things that don't work. The first thing you want to do is accept that the landscape has changed and it's going to stay so forever. And I'm going to have to deal with this as it is, not as I wished it was, not as I thought it should be. Because like I said at the beginning, life is unfair, life is unjust. And so when that landscape changed, there is no longer any normal to return to. Because sometimes we use those words. Look, words have ways of getting us boxed in. Well, I'm waiting for things to get back to normal again. As if there is ever going to be a time when things are going to come back to normal. You use those words and you box yourself into a thinking that may never happen. And so for the rest of your life, you're waiting to this normal that would never be. This normal that would never happen. Because with every loss, the landscape is changed forever. You learn to carry your pain. You learn to walk with your pain. It is yours now for the rest of your life, unfortunately. And so when people tell us, well, never mind, you know what, it is going to be normal again, things are going to be okay. No, it's never going to be okay again. The way it was, no, it's not going to happen. Unless I can delete the data, my memory, and make it look like it didn't happen. And that doesn't happen. So how can we live with what has happened to us? How can we embrace the loss we have experienced and not try to run away from it as though there was something wrong with me losing a dear one or a loved one? So every object, when you have lost someone, every object in your house becomes a trigger. You go shopping, there are certain things you will not buy anymore. Because this person who likes those things is no longer there. That becomes a trigger. You walk into the room, you see images, you see stuff that this person gave you, or you identify with this person. So almost everything in your life becomes a trigger. You see someone that has a haircut like his or hers, that becomes a trigger. You attend a wedding that is supposed to be joyful, and you see someone that reminds you immediately, suddenly of, this person that you love. That changes your mood and everything. There's nothing wrong with that. What that says is, your heart is still broken. And it should, because love has been taken away from you. So don't try to make it, don't try to patch it and look strong, look brave, look as though you are in charge and in control. That's all fake, and it doesn't work. Be true with yourself, be honest with yourself, and tell yourself the truth. I am still hurting. What does this mean? It means you love this person so much. Now you want to love them, and you can't anymore. That's what grief is saying to you. And the second point I said, we will all be broken in some way by our loss and our grief. But to be broken is no reason to see everything as broken. Yes, you will be broken. These are all the truths you must tell yourself when you're hurting so badly. Yes, I hurt so bad. But the fact that I hurt so bad doesn't mean I cannot pick the pieces of my life again. I can pick all the pieces again. Slowly, one by one, I can pick all of those pieces again and still make a life with it. Not that I make a life as if it was before. I cannot go back there because there's no going back to that place. But can I pick the pieces that are left of my life and still walk ahead and still go ahead? Of course I can. That's why I could get a new eye, an artificial eye, and still move on. I could get new limbs and still move on. It doesn't mean my life is going to be the same. I could marry again and move on and go on. I go ahead. I could, have another child and go ahead. I could get another job and go ahead. But that doesn't mean that I have a place to return to that was what I had before. That's not happening. So don't set yourself up for something that may never happen. I said number 3. Loss and grief are universal. You will feel misunderstood, helpless, and alone when you most need love and support. We haven't heard or felt empty with words from people who are trying to help us. Often, they make our pain feel worse. Somebody comes to you and is telling you, you know what, well, we have to thank God for all of this. Thank God what? That's hard. It looks easy because your heart is not broken. If my heart is broken and you come and tell me, well, there's a reason for all of this. Can you tell me the reason for all of this? So but I know what those people are trying to tell you. They tell you be strong. No, I cannot be strong right now. Because I'm so broken, so battered that I cannot be strong right now. And someone is saying to you, you know what, be strong. You have to be strong for everybody. You know, everyone is leaning on you. No, I cannot be strong for everybody. Because right now, I am so weak. And there is nothing wrong with me being weak. And with me being broken. But when we try to be strong when we are not, then that's when grief crushes us even worse. Because you're trying to fake to be strong when you cannot be strong. And what's wrong with you being weak? Because you have a knocked heart, by loss. That's okay. You cry and cry. You feel you refuse to eat, that's okay. You can't sleep, that's okay. It's part of your grief. Your heart is saying to you, your heart is rebelling. You accept what has just happened. This is unjust, this is unfair, and this is not right. That's fine. Don't make it look like there's something wrong with you. Don't make it look like you're crazy. You're not crazy. Something crazy happened to you. Something very crazy happened to you. Someone that you loved, someone you would die for, was just taken away from you. That's something crazy. You are not crazy. It doesn't matter what symptoms of grief show up in your life. You are not crazy. Now, we have also understood grief, in so many ways in our culture. First, we think grief is a problem. We see grief as some messy thing. And that's where I like to make my experiment. Who is ready to help me make my experiment? Who is going to volunteer? I need someone to help me volunteer. I'll need you to wash your hands when you finish, all right? Who's going to volunteer? You sure?
Yes.
Oh my God, this guy wants to volunteer. You see what I'm going to bring out here? See this egg? This is a raw egg. I need you to hold this egg for me. Okay, now let me get
Someone else.
You want to come? Okay.
Someone with two.
But thanks, yeah. Thank you. Good. I want you to hold, make sure your hands are like this. Now, I'm going to bring this egg and put it on his hand, into his hands, all right? Make sure this egg doesn't leak, all right? Make sure it doesn't leak, because if it does leak, then we have a problem. You're going to wash your hands with both of these. No, don't put it in one hand. Say in two hands, yeah.
It's gonna leak.
Make sure it doesn't leak. Come on, what are you doing?
It's gonna leak.
Why not?
Because that's how it is.
No, you're failing. You're failing here, big time. All right, now stay on that. Stay that way. You see how
Is it supposed to leak or not?
See how it's not supposed to leak.
It's not.
It's not supposed to leak. He's supposed to make sure that he's holding everything tight so that nothing leaks. Now, that's what grief feels like. It's messy. It's impossible to hold together. And the world is telling you, hold it together. And you're believing and thinking you can hold it together. Because what I asked you to do was an impossibility. There's no way you'll be able to hold this together unless you have glued your hands and all the spaces in your hand. That's how grief is like. It's messy. It doesn't feel good. I'm sure that thing doesn't feel good in your hands, does it?
Slimy.
It feels up, yeah, it feels everything that you don't want. It feels messy.
Yeah.
That's how grief feels like. Now you can put it back in. I need to get some water. Get some water. All right. I have soap there. So that is what grief feels like. So when people are asking you to hold your grief and make it look like it's okay, and make it look like you can stop it from, you see how messy? I'm sure it's messy for all of you guys, right? That's how messy grief is. It's so senseless. It's crazy. That's what we deal with when you have lost someone so very dear to you. And yet, you believing that you can do what he was trying to do. That you can hold it all together. And that, yeah, sure. That you can hold it all together. That everything is going to be okay again. As though that egg is broken. That's a life lost. That's your grief. The next time you're feeling the pain of your own grief, think about this experiment. If you cannot hold it together, that's okay. It wasn't meant to be held together. You're meant to bleed the way you're bleeding. Your heart bleeds. Your soul bleeds. Your sleep bleeds. Your appetite bleeds. Your calm bleeds. Everything bleeds when you lose someone so dear to you. Thank you very much. So don't try to put it together. It is messy. That's okay. It's crazy. That's okay. Don't try. You will not fail. You will fail because you're trying to do the impossible. You're setting yourself up to never succeed in your grief. So we live in a culture where grief is seen as a problem to be fixed. You know, we are, especially in our society today, we are a society that can deal with everything. We just had COVID and we're fixing it, right? So we are a society that can fix problems. It doesn't matter what. If we want to go to the moon, we can go to the moon. If we want to go to Mars, we can go to Mars. Whatever it is we want to do, we can do it. So sometimes we think grief is like that. It's a problem. I have to find the LCM on how to fix it. No, that's not what grief is. Grief is not a problem to be fixed. It is an experience to have. Grief is not a problem to be fixed, like he was trying to do. It's an experience to have. You just have an experience. Now you know how it feels like to try to hold that. That's the experience. Don't try to fix grief. It's not a problem. It's an experience. But if we treat grief the way our society wants us to treat grief as a problem, then we run into, line of crisis in our own lives. We struggle. We never heal. We never get our pieces together because we are trying to fix a problem that is not a problem. Sometimes you read books that tell you, okay, if this is how you grieve, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps or stages. That's nonsense. Because that's not how grief doesn't have a formula. It doesn't have it's nonsense, it's crazy, it's messy, it's everything. You cannot say, okay, well, you see you have these steps 1, 2, 3, and then you go through all those steps as if that's real. It's never real. Grief can come in all of those steps in one moment, in one burst. You can feel right today, and tomorrow it's almost as if everything opens up again. So don't try to set yourself up. Well, you know what? Okay, now I'm feeling this. Okay, I'm going to feel this the next time. Okay, when I'm feeling this, I know that I'm close to acceptance. Yeah, you may get to acceptance, but don't expect that grief is going to have that kind of movement, that kind of step or stages. It doesn't happen. So grief cannot be fixed. It is something we tend gently. Did you see your experience? Trying to hold it gently, trying to massage it to make sure that it doesn't leak. That's how grief is meant to be. It's not something you just, okay, you know what? Now I know what to do. No, you don't know what to do. You were trying to see if something works because you didn't know what to do and how to hold that. That's how grief. Can you hold your grief that way? Not knowing how to grieve, but yet holding it. I'm going to hold it as much as I can and make sure it leaks the least. But I'm not setting up myself to make sure it doesn't leak because that's not happening. So the next thing that we must fix that our society gets very wrong, there is not a reason for everything. You hear people tell you, you know what, there's a reason for everything. That's not the reason for everything. Maybe there's a reason. Only God knows that. I don't know that. So you telling me, well, there's a reason why your 17-year or your 15-year-old son killed himself. There's no reason for that as far as I'm concerned. Maybe God knows God has a reason. I don't. And you telling me there's a reason makes me even more upset. So what reason will my 16-year-old in his final year of school, because he was so bright, kill himself or herself? And yet, somebody comes to me and tells me there's a reason for that. What reason can you give me for that? That a child 17-year-old or 16 or 15 years old will kill himself or herself so tragically. What reason are you going to give them? Yes, because we are meaning-making creatures. We cannot live without making meanings. We try to make meanings. Well, maybe God did, or maybe that. That doesn't help our grief. Stop looking for meaning when something happens. There was no meaning in what I was doing here, right? Putting egg, that's not how we do eggs. That's not the process, that's not the procedure. Normally we would have a plate, okay, if you want to crack your egg, either into a frying pan or some other. What we did here, that's not how you treat eggs. Generally, that's not how we do it. And so when you're trying to find meaning in your loss and your grief, you're trying to say, that's how we do. We can find a reason why we did. No, it doesn't. There's no reason. And so when someone has died, when you have lost someone that is dear to you, quit trying to find, maybe this happened. Maybe there was something I didn't do right. maybe if I had done this, could we have changed if we had gone to another hospital? Could this have happened? Could this have, we make all of that, and that just compounds the pain we feel. Because we're looking for every reason to either blame ourselves or to blame someone else. Listen, bad things also happen to good people. Believe it or not. Bad things happen to very good people too. That's the world in which we live. It's fragile, it's frail, it's beautiful. You said it, life is good. But good as life is, bad things also happen to very good people. So, sometimes there is no reason for why your loss just happened. Why your marriage just ended. There's no reason why your child just died. There's no reason why your husband, who just got promoted and got a good job, just passed away. There's no reason why a soldier, the best in your team, who was the linchpin for everything else, would just die when he was the one that everyone depended upon for guidance and for leadership. There's no reason. So we must quit trying to find reasons for why things happen. Down the line, yeah, we might try to, live with the fact that, yes, things like this happen. But quit trying to find meaning when you are grieving. And number 3, your recovery from loss will not come in stages, I said that already, or easy steps. We start genuine recovery by being truthful to our feelings. And we shall talk about the truths that we need to face when we lose. So don't try to be strong. When I lost my dad, people were trying to tell me, no, you have to be strong. You are the priest. You have to be strong for everyone in the family. Could you imagine that kind of pressure? That you have to be strong. When you're broken, don't tell someone to be strong when you're broken. Don't do that. Because believe it or not, words do have ways of impacting how we think. Suddenly I'm thinking, maybe I'm supposed to be strong. No, you're not supposed to be strong. But you just had someone telling you, you have to be strong for everyone. And now you're believing that you should be strong. And you're fighting to be strong. And you're making your grief worse off. Because you're trying to do something that isn't easy at the time you're doing it. Feel what you feel. If you feel like crying, you cry. If you feel like anger, you be angry. If you feel like blaming and calling on God, in whatever language you want to call it, call him. He can deal with it. But by no means, don't fake it. Don't deny it. Don't try. Let your kids see you cry. Don't make them learn dysfunctional way to grieve, as if there's something wrong with you crying. Some of us don't want to cry before our children because we want to be strong. No, let them cry. Let the kids see that dad is heartbroken. Let the kids see that mom is heartbroken. Kids learn in ways that we don't even imagine. That little kid will warm your heart. But that kid can only warm your heart when they see that it's broken. Whether by just coming to give you a hug or just holding your hand, trying to make you strong. That kid can make you strong. You don't try to be strong for the kid. Believe it or not. Don't try. You will never win it. I tell you, you will never win it. You make your grief more difficult. So be what you feel now and be honest with yourself. You are under loads of pressure already. Don't increase it by faking strength that is not there. There is no acceptable way to grieve. I made that point already. There's no acceptable way to grieve. So please, when someone dies, don't come to them and begin to compare your grief with them. Yeah, when I lost my, no, I've done that a few times too. You know what, when I lost my dad, and this is what happened, yeah, those things are true. But I'm also learning not to do that anymore. When someone has passed and you go visit with them, that's not time to tell your own stories. Don't do it. Yes, we all are looking for opportunity because we live in a society where we can't even tell the story of our grief because when our own person died, we bottled everything in. We didn't tell no one. We couldn't even talk about it. Now, your grief has happened and I'm with you. Of course, I want my story to be heard and to be validated. So I begin to tell you how when my dad had, or when I lost my marriage, or when this happened. No, this is time for his grief or her grief. Make it his grief or her grief. Don't hijack the person's grief. And we do that often because we're not sure what to do. So we begin to compare our griefs. Sometimes we even minimize. You know what? I lost 2 children. Say, for instance, this person only lost 1 child. You tell them, look, I lost 2 of my children in a very tragic accident. That's true, and it's tragic. But when you say that I lost 2, when this person just lost 1, what the person is hearing is, your grief is not as bad as mine. So don't make it look like it's as bad as it is. That's not how to console somebody. That's not how to make them feel. So make sure you don't go to someone's visit, to visit with someone, and compare your grief and compete with them about how your grief is. When you visit with someone, that's not time. And you also, if you are grieving and somebody comes and is comparing their grief with you, please be honest with them. That's time to be honest. Tell them, if you don't mind, can we just talk about my grief? Honestly. Why? If you don't do it, they're just going to keep saying stuff that will be hurting you. When? And turning you off. Making you really, really angry. And they live there, you're feeling, I wish they didn't come. That's not time to deal with that because you already have a lot of stuff. So gently tell them, you know what, if you don't mind, can we just focus on my grief? My heart hurts right now. This is not time to educate and to teach people how to grieve, because there is just no formula that anyone has to grieve. I don't have that. And that's why I'm not giving you a formula. I'm not telling you things not to do and things to do when that happens. The formula is going to be yours. And it's determined by the person who has passed. And how intimate and how close that relationship was between you and the person who has passed. So it will never be okay. That's okay. You may never get over your grief. You will learn through appropriate support to carry your grief. You will never get over your grief. We also heard those words. Well, you'll get over it. I'm sure you've heard that before, right? You'll get over it. No, you will not get over it. You'll get through it. You will not get over it. Sometimes words do have ways, because we hear them and think that we have, maybe there's something I will do to make sure that I'll get up one day and that loss is no longer a loss. No, you will not get over it. Quit believing that you can get over it. You can get through it. You can learn to carry it just like you were carrying it for as long as you can. You can do that. But there's no way you can get over your messy grief that has happened to you. So the difference between what others think of our loss and what we know and feel personally is the most difficult gap to bridge. That's why people tell us what they tell us differently from what we feel. That's a difficult gap to bridge, and you must be aware of that. When people come and tell you, they write all the kinds of things that they write that should comfort you and console you, and they don't. When people visit and say all the nicest things, or you go to a homily, like to a funeral, and you hear all the powerful messages, and yet they don't comfort you or console you. That's a gap between what has happened to you, what you're feeling, and what everyone else is thinking and saying to you. Because they are not feeling what you're feeling. That gap is difficult to bridge. You have to be aware of that. And don't think, why am I unable to connect with? They're saying these are all beautiful things and these are all beautiful people. Why am I not getting consoled? Am I over making this? Am I over grieving this? No, you're not over grieving nothing. You're grieving. And you're grieving differently from how everyone else is thinking about your grief, because this is your grief. This was your grief. See, everyone else was looking at you and thinking, he should do it this way. I'm sure in your mind, hold it this way, hold it that way. I'm sure everybody had an opinion of how you should better hold that thing so that it doesn't drip. But that was your grief. Somebody might tell you, oh, come on, why don't you put your hand, make your hand tighter or your fingers tighter? They will tell you all of that. But no, they are not dealing with that. You are dealing with that. You are the one faced with that and having to deal with it. And so, these are the things we want to do to tell ourselves the truth. Facts. What has happened cannot be made right. What has happened cannot be made right. What is lost cannot be restored. There is no gain trying to make it otherwise. I must be honest with myself. I'm not going to tell myself, okay, we'll meet again in heaven. That's true. But that doesn't make any meaning to me right Yes, I'll get another child, but not this one. So that doesn't make any sense to me right now. There's no way I can make this right. I could marry a better husband, a better wife. That doesn't make it right. So don't try to make your loss or your grief right. As if I did something, if I did this, I could make it right. You cannot. And you have to accept it. This is unfair, this is unjust, this is not right, and there's nothing I can do to make it right. It may look like it's powerless, but it's the most powerful way to heal your own grief. It's what you're doing. You're accepting that this thing is unfair, it's unjust, it's not right, but I can't make it right. It's not in my power to make it right. I have to live with it. It takes the sting of grief and pain away from you, because you're grieving in a very natural way, as grief is meant to be grieved. It says your loss is exactly as bad and as messy as you think it is, right? That was you here. Your grief is as bad as that. If you feel like your heart is it's almost like torn out from you. Yes, that it's bad. Is that bad? As you feel it, that's how it is. And don't try to think, I don't know why this is happening to me. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? No, your grief is as bad as you're feeling it. It is that bad. It is that bizarre. It is that senseless. So, no making it look any less or making it make sense. There'll be time for everything. Don't try to make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I said, you are not crazy. You have to tell yourself that truth. I am not crazy because my heart is broken with grief. Something crazy just happened to me, and I am responding as best as I can. Something crazy happened to you, and you're struggling to respond as best as you can. These are all the truths that will make you feel in yourself. Feel in your place. Feel your loss. Own your loss, and not try to avoid or run away or deny the pain that loss has brought to you. Say, grief is part of love. Grief says that I do have so much love for this person, and I cannot give it right now because this person is not here. And I'm hurting because I see so much love in my heart, in my truth, in my words, in my soul, in my spirit, that I wanted to share with this person. And this person is not here right now. And my heart bleeds. And it might bleed for much longer. Those are all the truths you need to tell yourself. Grief is love. It's love that you have for a person, for a thing, whatever it is, that you can no longer share, can no longer give, because this person is no longer here. So don't try to cut it off. You know what? When we meet in heaven, we can share. Yes, when we meet in heaven, life is going to be different. For now, this is your fact. This is your reality. This is your truth. We cannot make it right anymore. And so, it says, we don't need people educating us on how to move on from our grief. We don't need people trying to educate you on how to move on. If someone comes, the best they can do for you is to support you on how to carry your grief. Maybe by bringing something on that to make sure it doesn't spill to the ground or mess something else. By not telling you, okay, do it this way or do it that way. Only you know how, based on what you're holding in your hands. It's your grief. So I said, we need people who can see our grief, acknowledge it, and validate it. Some things cannot be fixed. They can only be carried. And grief is one of those things that cannot be fixed. You cannot be carried with you. So my hope is that as you learn of this, because if you've not lost someone really dear, you will. Believe it or not. That's a sad fact. And I know it. And I prepare myself every day to own it. And people are going to die in your life. Or things are going to happen. Things are going to happen in your life that will break your heart. And when they do, I hope that you remember that that's not a problem that you're called to fix. That's an experience you're called to have. That you can carry the way this egg was carried by steward. That's how grief is meant to be carried. I could see you making your face when he was carrying that egg. It looked messy, right? It did, right? Yeah. But that's how. So when you just have that picture, that's exactly how it feels like. It doesn't feel good on your hands. It feels good on your mouth, but definitely not on your hands, right? Because that's how it is. So now, I don't know how much time we have. Almost a few minutes. I want to hear from you guys. I'm talking the entire time. Tell me something. What's right?
I think that, so one of the things that I saw, Chaplain, is just that, so everybody saw the egg, right? So they broke the egg, the cracked shell of the egg fell onto the hand. So my first assumption was just to maintain the liquid, right? The yolk and the egg on your hand, right? So what, and not letting go. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, you know, great analogy, because I was like, at the beginning I was like, why is all the stuff is coming out of his hands when we should be holding together? So same thing happened, right? Same thing analogy when it happens in life. The first assumption when we have grief or we have that loss and we're facing that challenge, the first thing is just gonna hold everything in and pretend that nothing happens. So like the chaplain was saying, like it's okay for you to feel how that feeling, right? And try to express it with someone. So you're gonna be able to manage that specific feeling. It's very hard. Like just losing a significant other or grief about a parent or family. It's a very hard process, you know. I don't know if you guys ever experienced it before, but I did when I lost my father, right? So it was a very uncomfortable situation with me because I never had that experience in my past. And then when I lost my father, I couldn't even cry when I was burying him, right? And then I was realizing, like, you know, I never had that opportunity to share my loss or grief with someone. So, great talking point, sir.
Good. And just with that, all right, sometimes we're trying to hold on to the person who has passed. You cannot. You can hold on to the memories, but you can't hold on to the person, just like you don't hold on to that egg. Doesn't matter how much we're trying. You want to hold on to this person who has passed, you have to tell yourself the truth. This love is broken. My heart is bleeding. This love is broken. I don't like it. I hate it. I hate the feeling. But this is the truth. That this love is broken. I wish I could make it better. I cannot. And I'm grieving. And I'm hurting. And I feel like dying. But I have to leave. Because I need to pick my pieces together. And make the best of it. It's hard. But it's true. Alright, what else? Before we leave. You have to go find a family.
Yeah, I got one up.
Alright, so you go ahead.
What about you, Sword? Do you want to say something specific?
I do. Well, the point that you made earlier about, like, don't belittle people because, like, don't compare your grief and stuff. For example, if you let me do the egg experiment, it's going to be a lot more difficult because I only have one hand.
Yeah.
And, like, people are different. Like, everyone is different. So, like, they can't, I mean, if they get mad at me for not being able to hold that egg as he did, I mean, it's like...
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, for instance, if you have experienced grief, like just last year, you're just recovering from your grief and then something happens again. Of course, the impact is going to be harder on you than on someone else. All right, and they may see two of you on the formation, and one person is doing very well, whose person died just 2 weeks ago, and your person died 4 months ago. Like, why is he doing this? Because they don't realize, yeah, this person that died 4 months ago was only on top of another loss that you experienced a year ago. So that means that is more grief and more pain that you're trying to process from what happened a year ago and 2 years ago. That's why it doesn't make any sense to compare our griefs. Because like you said, it's almost like feel like, okay, I have two sources of grief. One is filled, this hand is filled with one. I only have one hand left with the other one. And yet this other person has two hands trying to hold their grief together. We're not the same, right? Yeah. That's why there's no basis for comparison. So good point. Yeah. What else before we go?
I feel like this class like helps, like you said, it helps us to help someone else in their time of grief. Because like a lot of times our intentions behind talking to them and sharing their experiences is to say that, okay, I somewhat understand what you're going through. The intention behind it is good, but then it's the wrong way about going about it. So in the end, like we do end up harming that person in some way, shape, or form. Like me, I just lost my mom back in March, and then I lost my sister like 8 years ago. So now, come back to the army, everybody's like, it's like, okay, you're back on goal, you gotta be strong, trying to refocus, but it's like, I can't, it's still new, that's one, and also it's like you said, it's never gonna go back to normal.
Yeah, because he had just one sister.
Yeah.
And his mom. Now, his sister died 8 years ago. His mom died 3 months ago. So now somebody might think, okay, you just lost your mom. Okay, well, I also lost my mom. That's not the same thing. Because for this man, he's just one individual now on this earth. All right. Doesn't have a sibling. His only sister passed away, his mom passed away. So it's completely different. And for somebody to tell you, I understand, no, they don't. Or for someone to tell you, I can imagine, no, they can't. So it's impossible to imagine someone's grief. But the intention is well, because they want to make you feel better. They want to make you fix your grief as if it was a problem to be fixed.
And it goes back to the coping mechanism, right? So, like I was saying, like when I lost my father, I couldn't I couldn't decipher like the feeling. I know that I was heartbroken, but I never expressed it.
Right.
So what happened to me is I would go home and start thinking about it, right? Something that might remind me of my father will make me extremely sad. But then I realized, like, I have to be able to express this and share it with someone.
Right.
Because if I continue to keep it on myself, I'm not saying that you're going to expose your grief and loss to everyone. Because, everybody will be able to, not everyone will be able to understand. Like the chaplain says, it's impossible to someone to say, I understand. Like, it's just basically, to me, it's like an expression. So it's for you to show support, right?
Right.
Now, I wouldn't say compromise, but it's more like a support mechanism. Then, a year later, lost my brother.
Right.
But since I took that route to be able to express it, right, and find that coping mechanism to understand, like, grief is something that will happen in our lives eventually. But the biggest thing is to how you're going to be able to manage it effectively, so you can continue moving on with your life. Like soldiers, like, you lost your mother, this is tours, and then you go on emergency leave, right? And then sometimes you feel like it's not enough. Like, because that happened to me. Like, I went on emergency leave, and I was like, I don't feel like I'm ready to get back.
Yeah, back to normal, yeah.
And go back to the normal battle rhythm that we have. But then I realized that the support system that we have in the military is very amazing. So we all have the chaplain and everything.
Yes.
So
Good stuff. So now another thing you don't want to do. This series is going to lead us how to grieve properly and how to the things we have to do, to deal with our grief well. This is just an intro. All right, we're going to deal with how we can manage our grief well. But please listen to people tell their stories. Don't take their stories from them. Listen to people tell their stories, because we are not a society that can listen to people's grief stories. They scare us. They frighten us. They're messy. So we want people to come and tell us good stories, not stories of their grief and their pain. We can't deal with that. We can't handle it. So it scares the hell out of us. And that's why sometimes we try to cut people short, because their stories are just, I can't hear it anymore. But we must learn to hear people's stories. We must learn to listen to people's stories. Acknowledge their pain. Validate their pain. Don't cut them short. And that means you must also be open to telling your story. There's nothing wrong with you telling your pain and sharing that pain. So I'd like to say thanks to all of you for joining us today. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to us, meeting again in same time next month. We're going to meet in 2 weeks for another class, for the spirituality class. All right. So thank you again, and you have a wonderful day. There's still some food here and some drinks.
Will you be sending an email every time?
I will, sure, I will. I'll try to do it sooner, I'll be doing it on Friday.
Okay.
That way, people have time to plan, instead of just doing it 2 days before. I'll do it on Friday. But thanks for showing up. I appreciate it.
Are you vegan?
Not completely.
Because they got a vegetarian.
Oh, thank you.
I ate it too.